Well, hello, my friends. I am Ted Simpson, certified Bob Ross instructor, and today, well, we're just gonna wing it. All right. Now, if you've ever been into a store recently and see those Bob Ross calendars, they have these one-a-day calendars. Ooh, I'd have to loop that line. And I always get a one-a-day calendar for Christmas. And whenever I see an interesting picture, I rip it off and I set it aside. I'm like, oh, that's one I got to do. That's one I got to practice for a class. That's the one I'm going to do for a class in 3 months. Well, take a look here. I've been collecting these, and I do once in a while, but it's like I find too many that I want to do, and I just don't get around to doing them. Let me show you that. So today, I'm going to do one right off the top. I've saved these here, right here. This is from late April of this year. Woo, hello. Come on, macro. There it is. So this one is from, oh, of course I cover up the date. This one is from just a few days ago. Set it aside there, and wouldn't you know it, I have some time free today. I thought I was having a class, but it fell through at the last minute. We had to reschedule. So I'm going to use this time here and all the paint that I laid out and going to do some paintings here. Is this going to be the only painting today? I don't know. We'll see how long, how far the paint stretches out here. I'm sure I'll have enough to do more paintings. Let's see how my attention span works. Let's see how my knees hold out. Oh boy, I'm making a mess here. So I am using a 16 by 20 canvas because it's up on the easel already. I didn't feel like switching it. When these are out on display at certain venues that I teach at here in Michigan, I like to have the big ones out there. Bigger paintings, bigger wow factor. I don't know. I'm just rambling on. I'm just a rambling. So, got our nice thin, even coat of the liquid white. I just keep going back and forth, up and down, diagonal, swirly, whatever. Got a nice, thin, even coat on my fingertips. And let's make a big old mess here. How many colors can we fit into this sky? How many colors did Bob use? It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's just about the limit that we do here. Do you think we could break that record? Let's give it a try. I tell you what. I'm going to start off using, look at all this paint I have left over here. Yeah, I told you I got canceled at the last minute. I already put the paints out. So let us, wow. Let's just throw out some yellow here. This is the bright cadmium yellow. Working it. Maybe I want it a little bolder. Put a little more up there. I tell you what, I'm going to come over here without cleaning the brush. I'm going to take a little bit of Indian yellow, maybe hit it in a spot or two. Indian yellow. Will we see this? Maybe, maybe not. I'm sort of feathering it out a little bit. Come right over, pick up a little bit of yellow ochre, overlap that yellow a little bit. On this side, maybe a little over here, a little bit of yellow ochre, work it in, not overly working it, that comes later. Alright, come right on back, add some bright red, boom, just dropping it in there. Look at that, I'm not even really taking the brush off the canvas, just Just rocking it in there. You can see here when the brush is nearly out of paint, that's when I just soften that edge over the yellows. This red will eat up a lot if you keep going over it. So I'm just gonna get it started there, get some nice red out there, feather it out. If you want it a little bolder, you can always make it a little bolder. All right, that's already 1, 2, 3, 4 colors. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the alizarin crimson. Ooh, let's do it. Let's go 5 colors. A little bit of the alizarin crimson. This guy's a bold one. 5 colors. Let's come over here, pick up just a small amount of phthalo blue. Crimson. A little bit of blue. That makes purple. Just bash it in there a number of times here, get that color all nice and mixed up, and let's see what we get. Oh, that's definitely purple. A little bit to the red side of purple. Hitting it in there, letting it come off the brush, softening right where it hits the previous color. 6 colors. Now I'm going to take my phthalo blue, work a bit more phthalo blue into the brush. Now I could have just went and gone and done it just like that, but I want a, ooh, look at that, a dark bluish purple, a blue violet. 7 colors. 7 colors right there. And then, I'll tell you what, since I've got some Prussian blue here, just some straight Prussian blue, 8 colors, 8 color sky. Have you ever seen anything like that before in your life? Maybe you have. All right. Yeah, you guys are going to think I've been drinking or something. I have not. But I'm going to come back right here with my 2-inch brush, and let's just go over it. Go over the yellow, the Indian yellow, the yellow ochre. Soften it right where those yellows meet the bright red. Now I need to stop here. Ooh, I'm going to put my palette down. I'm going to stop here, and once in a while, during this process, I'm going to stir out the excess paint, both the liquid white and those colors I put up there. So look at that. Now, going into the crimson, trying to keep from dragging color inward. Try to keep that crisscross nice and tight. Going into my purples and my blues now. Softening, mixing, taking out brush marks as I go. And let's clean that brush. I picked up a lot of liquid white. That liquid white was a little heavier of an application today, so it mixes and blends even faster. Where is my, oh, got extra canvas there. Get rid of that. Got extra this, extra that. Everything was laid out for a class here. All right. Clean my brush. There we go. Now I'm going to do this one more time here just to soften this stuff. Trying to create these bands of color. Yeah, kind of work a little bit of that blue inwards if I want. Just stop before I get to the yellow. Couple of hairs there. Let me get those out. They're gonna bug me. There we go. I'll tell you what, how many colors was that? We got our 3 yellows, 4 red, 5 darker red, 6, 7, 8 colors. Oh my God, here we go. Gonna get crazy. I'm gonna come right on back. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the titanium white here in my 2-inch brush. And let's put an extra bright spot right over here. 9 colors. 9 color sky. Holy moly, it doesn't get much more. I don't think we could do more than that. Just a little light bit coming up here. Now, if you wanted to, you could go and just keep bringing that white right on out. That's up to you. 9 color sky. Wowzer, wowzer. All right, let's just jump right into it. We got so much sky out there. Why bother? Why bother with clouds? I have a little bit of that crimson out here. Maybe it's even got a touch of the blue in it. I think all my land's gonna be down here, so maybe we got a little bit of shadow. I'm not worried too much about this. I might add to it. It's just my little indication of where my snow is gonna be. Okay, what do I got here? I got a big old mess happening already, so let's clean up some of this color. There we go. And let's take some Prussian blue, a little bit of Van Dyke brown, touch of that crimson, and just make a nice dark background shade. Black, blue, brown, and crimson. Just blue, black, brown, and crimson. The brown is just to dull things down here. Touch more of the crimson. Pull it down nice and flat. Cut across. And we've got a wacky old ridge style mountain today. So I just press the knife, pull down. Press. Something like that. And you can make as many of these little bumps and lumps as you like here. Now that I've got that paint in there, I'm just pressing some of it and pulling it down a little bit. We're going to use this color that we have laid out here. Maybe if you need a little, you can always take a little bit more in your knife. You know, I just want to pull some of this color to get it started and then scrape off the excess. Pushing that paint right into the fabric and scraping off the excess. Now, how big of a mountain? Of course, that's up to you, you know that. But how much paint you put on here and how big, how much you draw it down right now is going to affect the mountain. And that's why every time you do this, it's a little bit different. You see here, when I pull a little bit more down, and over here, maybe not so much, I have less paint to pull down. So the darker it is, the more dark you have, the darker the whole thing is going to be. The lighter, the less paint you have over here, the lighter things are going to be, because there's not as much paint to pull down and blend away. So you create a lighter look. Hope that makes sense. So, double check myself here, just scrape off any of that thick chunkiness. I think we're good to go. I think we're good. I've got so many paper towels up here on my shelf here, they're getting in the way. There we go. One paper towel should last you a little while here. I don't know why I had 400 of them. Okay, so I'm going to knock the excess paint off my 1-inch brush. Shake out the excess, beat the devil out of it. There we go. Now I could use the 1-inch brush, or the 2-inch brush, but look at that. I push and I just want to move paint. Look at that. Pressing in, pulling down. I'm just really focused on the same basic angle for now. Pulling, and it pulls down that excess paint. And hopefully here we get a little bit of variation of color as I described. Okay. Now I'm going to wipe out some of the excess paint. That can change things too. When I'm pulling things down here, I'm picking up more paint so that when I do go out to the sides, even though I have less paint there, I can still really overdo it. Make it just as dark if I want. Or if you wipe out the excess paint out of your brush, then it will stay a little bit lighter out there. And you can see here, the more I go over it, every swipe picks up a little bit of that liquid white that's down here at the bottom. So I touch, pull down, when I come back up, it puts a little bit of liquid white there. You got to watch that you're not making it too light. Okay. Now, I wiped out the excess paint, and just very lightly, I'm just whisper touching here, creating a little bit of mist here at the base. Look at some of that sky color is now reflected mist in the base of my mountain. Something like that. Now I can keep going over it and just keep going and blend it all into one just blob of color. But I'm going to try to stop here and keep the yellow mist, red mist, a little bit of bluish mist, purpley. Very nice. All right, you know what time it is. It's highlighting the mountain time. So I get this nice bead of color. We line it up with the edge of the top there. Whoop, too low. A little higher, and then just let it fall down. Barely touching. Barely touching. Now when I have that roll of paint and most of it is coming off the knife, now that roll isn't so rolly anymore. It's kind of flat. So you have to flatten the blade to get that last little bit off. Or just wipe it clean and get a new roll. Either way works. That's the dance that we do here. Putting some on, letting it come down, letting it come off the knife, stopping, wiping, reloading, and moving on. We're going to come back and we're going to do all sorts of highlights and shadows here, so we don't need to do all the highlights quite yet. We're going to figure out what's what. Maybe just extend this one out a little bit. This paint, as I tell my students, it doesn't like to spread. The more you keep going over it, the less of these little crags and things start to, you won't be able to see them as much anymore. So we just try to lay that paint on there and try not to spread too much. Okay, maybe over here we got another one. Just kind of falls away in the distance here. Light, light touch. Light touch. Maybe we'll just call that good for now. Let me mix up a color. I'm going to take some of that white. I'm going to come way over here. Add a little bit of the phthalo blue. Make kind of a marbled shadow color. Ooh, there we go. Now, how deep of blue you want to do is up to you. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. So, what I'm going to do over here, I got just enough in my knife here to sneak this in here. Sometimes you gotta find that different angle because I don't want to overlap my yellow. Oh, overlap my white. Oh man, this really sounds like I've been partaking. But all else fails, I'm just going to use a small knife. That allows me to sneak in some of these harder to reach areas that the big knife has problems with. Like this one. Get some going in there. And we're not done, okay? We're not done. We're just getting some shadows worked in. We're going to come back to the highlight. Just getting some of that shadow down here. Ooh, look at that. I like leaving a little bit of that extra dark there. Maybe way over on this other side, it's a little deeper into shadow. So if I add a little more blue or even some of my background color, just to help denote that it's even further away from the light source. There we go. Now, coming back to my highlight, I maybe overlap that shadow a little bit. Create the indication here that there's these new little ridge lines popping out. And it makes it look less column-like. You know? Less just one shadow, highlight, shadow, highlight. Makes it look a little more 3D. That's the way I like to have it. There we go. Now occasionally you'll touch a little bit of shadow. It's just try not to do it on purpose. A little bit might hit and travel and create some little things in here. That's okay. Looks nice. Just sort of let this kind of go where it wants to. We're guiding it here and there. Look at how I just add a little section right here. When I add these little sections of highlight, there's nothing wrong with coming back with a little bit of shadow and sneaking a little bit of shadow on the opposite side here and there on the new highlight sections. Maybe even a little bit of that extra dark background color. Ooh, there's some of these deep, deep sections of shadow. Especially over here in the back of the light source here, the bit that's furthest away from the light, having a little bit of that worked in. And now watch this. Again, just going over it a few more times. I'm not really spreading it, but it is kind of just making it sort of disappear. The more I go over it, it'll calm it down, as I like to say. It'll just sort of settle it softly into the scene. Adds a little bit of interest. A little bit more highlight. I want a little more. Ooh, I like that. I got a little ridge right there. Breaks up that area. And wherever you want now, take a look. If I just add a little bit right here, a little bit heavier, adds like a whole new little crevice right here. Let me strengthen that up. There we go. Maybe it kind of connects with this one. And then where I can, look at that, the short edge of the knife, I just pick out a couple little spots here. Put a little indication of some shadow on the other side of this new little thing. Gives me a nice little dance here of colors. Working against each other, working next to each other. Maybe a little bit right here. Maybe a little of this comes over. Pushes that little shadow section behind into the back. It's going to say into the shadow, which kind of makes sense. Now, let's see. If I were to take a little bit of that shadow color and lighten it up a little bit. Ooh, that might have been a little too much of the shadow color. But just some off-white. Not bright white, just a little bit off. There we go. And maybe that was too much. Let me get a little tiny roll. Now it's shadow, but it's just a little brighter in spots here. Ooh, it just adds something nice right there, doesn't it? A little bit of reflected light. Again, color variation, always a good thing. Okay. Sometimes you get a little vigorous with it. You got to do a little bit of cleanup. I get it. Remember, we just stick paint right on top. Don't try to spread it too much or remove it. Maybe a little bit of this off-white. You can create another little outcropping here. I don't know. I'm not even sure we'll see that one. All right, let's take our 1-inch brush, and I'm just tapping, keeping this brush moving, and then gently sweeping up, just lifting up with the brush to create that little bit of mist, tapping, following the basic angle here, which is vertical, keeping that brush moving. I don't want to stay too much in one spot. Wipe out that brush and very lightly lift, creating a little bit of blur, which gives the illusion of mist. Okay. Now I'm only doing in the bottom inch or so. And then I just got a couple of simple crisscross strokes, blend out the very bottom, take out some of those little dirty remnants. Allows us to see a little mist. There we go. Couple of lifts, couple of blends. We gotta stop before it gets too strong there and just wipe the whole thing away. Okay, well. Gotta do a little bit of cleanup here. Sometimes when you're working, you make some messes here on your big old palette. And you just gotta do a little bit of palette maintenance. Get all this nice dark color here. Maybe I'll use it a little later, maybe in a different painting. So, once you've wiped out the bulk of it with the knife, or scraped up the bulk of it, I just give my area a little bit of a buff with a paper towel. There we go. Now we're going to make up a nice big old batch of brown here. Now the one color I didn't give myself much of is the crimson. So let's see if I use all the crimson and an equal amount, 50-50, of sap green will make a nice brown. Now this is a softer brown. It's not as firm as the Van Dyke brown. That's why I'm using it here. It just makes for loading the tools that much easier. Comes off the canvas much easier. And it's slightly thinner in consistency, so it sticks to the thicker paint easier. So this is still definitely to well, it's a little bit to the green side, and I think I just added more green. So let's see what we make here. This does need to be thoroughly mixed, so it just takes a couple extra pulls here. Make sure it all comes off the knife, gets mixed in. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of white and a little bit of my color, mix it in, definitely to the green side. Now, I don't want it to the green side myself, so the solution is I add a little bit more crimson. I didn't think I was going to be adding more paint to my canvas here, to my palette I should say, but I don't want green in my winter scene, not so much green here, so I'm going to take this and just change it up. I really want it right in the middle, not too green, not too crimson, just a straight medium brown. So let's see what this does. Adding a bit more crimson, cleaning out my knife, mixing it up again. Let's see what we get. A touch of the white, touch of the color, mix it in. That's right in the middle. To me, that looks right into the middle color. Just a nice medium brown. All right. And I have a little crimson left over if I need it. So let us see here. I'm going to take a large fan brush. Ooh, that is a doozy. And let's see here. I'm going to take about half of that brown, add a small amount of white to it. Look at that. So it's not just pure brown. There we go. To be honest, I think I'm going to switch over and use a small fan brush. Just because I don't have as much paint here. That large fan brush really sucks up the paint. So, there we go. Small brush works just as good as the large one. So what we're going to do here is we're going to tap in some background trees. Just tapping downwards, striking, bending the bristles. And look what happens when the brush is nearly out of paint. It makes lighter looking trees. Isn't that something? So you get variation once again. I keep saying it. Different colors. Ooh. I'm going to change that one. They're mostly pointing up. That's what I'm going for. Is mostly we want these trees to be pointing upwards. We don't want it to look like a tornado went through. And down here, they're a little bit smaller, so I'm not tapping so hard. There's a bunch of little things going on here. And then maybe some taller ones. Look how that paint sticks right on top of the mountain color. Thin paint sticks to a thick paint. Bob was right. Bob's always right. He knows that all these little tips and tricks here allow you to make this painting even if you've never painted before. Oh, we're going back big. Wow. Start bashing that brush. All sorts of trees. Look how much we cut off that mountain. And you can have your mountain cut wherever you want it. Anything you don't like about the mountain, well, that's a perfect spot to cover it up with some trees. All right, so I'm going to clean out this brush with some paint thinner. Tap it away, get most of that thinner off onto a brush. Now, I've got my 2-inch brush here, and I don't want to drag all the color down. Sometimes I strike really hard, really bend the bristles, But I'm trying to use more of just the corner here to create some mist. Soften the bottom of these trees. Moving back and forth, up and down a little bit, creating some mist and fog here. I go across it once. I'll wipe the excess paint out of my brush first here, and then very lightly lift. Helps create that nice vertical look. It takes out some of those tap marks a little bit. And then if I need to mist it anymore, just misting the bottom of the mist, if that makes sense. I don't want to pick up more color. I just want to keep just beating the bottom of it here so it picks up that liquid white and it just softens and softens and softens. Look at that, we got a nice misty layer of trees happening there. And then, look at that, I used just enough. Then I'm going to go back into my pure brown, that brown that I mixed up without any white in it. And let's add another layer of trees, and look at these. Nice and dark, covering up, overlapping I should say, a bit of the previous line of trees, leaving that little bit of mist as our separator. Maybe we got some taller ones here. Some of them overlap more of the mist than others. Reloading, re-smoothing the brush often so you can get those nice pointies. Nice little pointy tops. And I think these are just going to kind of wander away. I think that's what Bob did, but I know that's what I'm going to do. I'm using a smaller canvas than Bob here, so I'm not going to always put in everything Bob did or try to shrink everything to fit everything that Bob did. Now, since this brush is handy, I'm going to use the 1-inch brush here and create a little bit of mist. Wipe out the excess, and then mist a little bit more. Watch this here, a little bit of paint in my brush and I tap and I move. Pick up just a little bit, just move it right on out. Helps it just sort of fade away a little bit better. Alright, one thing I didn't do here was do my lift. Sometimes when you're misting, if you do it too much or too hard, it creates these harsh lines. And it like cuts the mist, it cuts the trees off. Rather than look misty, it just looks one or the other. I want those trees to look like they're disappearing into mist. If you do it too much and it just, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. Lift very, very gentle. Wipe out the brush. Tap a little bit. Soften it. There we go. Alright. So it did look like Bob added a couple of really nice big trees here. So I think I have just enough paint. Just enough of that brown left over. And if you don't, you can either make up a little bit more. I just supplemented with just a tad of the Van Dyke brown. It's up to you. And let's load this brush up again. Lots of paint pulled nice and smooth. Big wedge of paint in my brush. Let's turn a couple of these trees into some that have some branches on them. That one's kind of hard to see. Let's make it taller so we can see it. So I make it a little taller and I just build it down. Keeping it dark, hopefully. Little spot there where it didn't stick. There it goes. Maybe we'll have another one. Let's put one like right there. This one maybe even a little taller. Tap, 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 tap. Start building it down. This is kind of a scraggly tree. It's a tall, skinny little guy. Not much more than a silhouette. We're not highlighting these. They're just some little indications off in the distance here. There we go. All right, clean out most of that paint out of my brush. Then I swish it. Using my 1-inch brush, let's mist out the base of that couple of trees too. Well, let us make some stuff here. I'm taking a little bit of my crimson. Look at that. A little bit of crimson. A little bit of blue. A little bit of the shadow blue. We need some white, so we might as well use some of this color here. A little bit of crimson. A little bit of this blue. Let's darken it down here. A little bit more blue. I'm looking for a purple color. Gotta have enough paint in here. So a little more crimson. Gotta dance around with it sometimes here to find that color we want. That blue is very strong, so it can just eat up your purple really quick. There we go. Starting to find the purple color. I add a little bit of the pure colors, crimson and blue. That dilutes the white, if that makes sense, and makes everything a bit darker. Not so light. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some little indications of some footy hills here. Some close-up stuff. And let's see here. Take my brush and let's just tap some of that out. Look at that, just sort of fade out the bottom of it. I love how you can just stretch it right on out. As much or as little as you want. Now, what I'm using here is just a touch of liquid white and titanium white. We want it just a little bit thinner. Just the titanium white is so firm, it's hard to stick. A touch of the liquid white, touch of titanium, just beating it in there. Now, what color should we use? I think it's just a little bit of the bright red. A little more of the white. Ooh, there we go. Look at that. Look at how that is just pushing right up on the tips of the bristles there. Want lots of paint up there, and I come up here and I just tap. Tap, 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 tap. Let it come off strong. Let it come off chunky, bright. We add some little highlights, some little snowy highlights on here. These, just like the mountains and such, a little bit of the reflection happening on top here. This time, this lovely little pink. And it just kind of fades off right on across here as well. Nice. So I'll put another one in here, but I think I'd lose too much of my foreground putting another footy in there. So I'm going to scrape off most of that paint off my brush, and then just pick up plain old titanium white. You can see here that little bit of pink stays in there, but it's not as strong. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch and pull. Touch and pull. When I'm backing up and pulling forward, I'm overlapping most of what I've done, but if I leave just a little variation here, to me, ooh, there we go. It adds a little bit of variation when it's not just a single line. I overlapped a good piece of this, didn't I? Oh well. That all works out. A little bit of that shadow starts to give a little shadow in our snow. Look at that. Light touch softens it. I'm going to take out some of those brush marks there. Look at that. All of a sudden we've got shadows in our snow and highlights in our snow. If you want to put another highlight, you can drop some in and softly blend it. Not looking to put up 10 pounds of paint up there. Maybe there's a little something there. A little bit of highlight on it. Some nice sparkly bits here, using the tips of the bristles here to give it that little bit of texture. Then I press in on the bottom and slide away. You can see how it creates that little bit of shadow. Now it looks pretty empty there, doesn't it? We gotta do something about that. We've got all that dark color here, and let's see here. We've got all this background mountain color here. It's a little too bold. Let's lighten it up just a little bit. Let's see if that's, we want it to be a shadow, but maybe not super dark, so I'm just adding in a little bit of the white in there. That excess color here lightens it up, and oh, we just gotta play, don't we? That's your bravery test, as Bob would call it, right? Just tapping, building a little shape. Once again, we're having variation in size. As I'm working my way down, I'm loading more paint into my brush, adding a little bit more dark color, a little more paint physically on the brush, so that it does get darker and deeper in shadow, working my way down. And maybe it comes right on down to, oh, let's just say right about there. Tree kind of just all disappears into bushes and so forth. Just want it dark there. So I am adding to it. You can see here when I go over the brown, it'll mix and make some colors there. So I just change it up, make it as dark as I need it to be. There, that's a little darker, deeper in shadow down here at the base. Maybe there's a bush or two. Just tap them in. Oh boy, what a mess. That brush does get dirty. So, let us see what we got here. A lot of times when your paint is all flattened out, it's hard to load properly. So I just pick it up, turn it over, put it back into a nice lumpy pile. I'm going to use just a smattering of the liquid white. pull down some of that titanium white. Back and forth. Gotta add a little bit of that bright red. Ooh, there we go. Get that paint right up on the tips of the bristles again. We gotta do a little dancing here. We're gonna come up here and just barely touch with the corner of the brush. See that? Ever so gentle. Creating these nice little leafy effects, one little section at a time. Let them kind of hang out. I tell you that the key to this is just move on. Try not to fuss and play around with it, going over and over and over it. Sometimes I'll dab off any of that dark color that I pick up so that the remaining color stays nice and pink. Ooh, that's a little bit brighter. Added a little bit more pink here and there. I tell you, I'm going to stop right there. Maybe we're going to have a nice nice tree limb or two. So I thin down a little bit of my brown with some paint thinner. And maybe we're going to have a dead old tree here. There we go. Couple of limbs. And let's just mix it up a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more of the liquid white. Change the angle of my brush here, and look at this. Little pulls with the tips of the bristles. And we're going to add some little bushes. One little shape at a time here. Look at that. Same brush, same paint. New effect. There we go. Now, let's see here. One of the last bits I'm going to do, fortunately, I need to put out just a little bit more paint. That paint does get a little contaminated. And we're going to try to create that little bit of a foreground here. Just using, I'm talking about the speck of whatever color is laid out. You can see how strong it is, how quickly it makes a shadow. Just a hint of a hint, pulling it down and away. Adds all these little interesting things in here. Remember when I said when I was doing the sky, I just unloaded a little bit of paint into the foreground? We see a little bit of it left over there. One last go here with my 2-inch brush. Nice soft effect. And I think we've got ourselves a completed painting. Now you could go ahead and you could keep adding things and making all sorts of crazy stuff here. Don't have to. Can if you want to. This time I'm going to thin down a little bit of the Van Dyke brown. Let's make this a little bit darker. Maybe let's add a little stick right here, a little tree. That paint isn't flowing off, so I'm going to add just a little bit more paint thinner. Really want this thin so that it just comes right off the tip of the brush. Let's maybe make a little one right there. Oh, look at that. Really flows off. Maybe strengthen this one up a little bit. Cool thing is whenever things overlap, it helps add depth and distance to our painting. So having a couple of these little things overlap in whatever we want here adds a little interest. While I'm there, I've got a little bit of this pink laid out here. It's bright, just a little bit of bright red with some white in it, but it's still going to be bold. And I will sign this painting. All right, well, I used up some of that paint, created a new scene here for you. I hope you enjoyed that 9-color sky and all the other stuff I put in there. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, all.